Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 5 of the Christie Corner podcast. I'm joined by Evergreen senior Eli Keifer, coming off a really solid 28 ball last night. I'm excited for this conversation because we spent a ton of time together the last year, and I think you definitely embody what it means to be a game changer. We talk about it often. Not my definition. I want to know yours. When I say that word, what does it mean to you to be a game changer?
So for me, I really think about someone, it's more of a mindset. Like game changer, it's, somebody's got to be able to make the big play at the end of the game. And so if you're willing to go out there and fail to make those big plays, I think that's what a real game changer is.
Yeah.
It doesn't always have to be the best player on the court. It can be someone who's got to go out and guard the best player on the team. But it's really it's more of a mindset than an actual person. You just got to be able to fail to change the game.
Yeah, I think that also kind of leads into, to be able to perform in those moments. You can't just be a game changer in that moment, but you also have to be a game changer at every other moment, right? Whether it's practice or a workout, you're shooting on the gun. It's not a part-time job, it's a full-time job. And I think that's one thing that you're really good at is locking in and getting into that mindset of that game changer, right? Going really hard, not being afraid to mess up when you're doing things. And I think that translates directly to the court. So let's talk about your journey. You're a coach's kid. I'm sure you've been around the game basically your entire life. When did you pick up a basketball?
I probably picked up a basketball when I was like 4 on like one of those little tight hoops, and just after that it was basketball. Like it was nothing else. I mean, I played baseball a little bit, but it was always basketball from the start.
Yeah.
Like as a coach's kid, he's got the keys to the gym, so you're in there every single day, and eventually like being in there, all the fun moments with your dad, it's just like you start to love it more and more every day. So yeah, just every day being in there, starts 5 years old and just haven't stopped. Yeah, I love it.
Were you the kid that was the ball boy for your dad's teams?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Loved it. I just had to be around the guys, which honestly probably didn't end up being in my favor because I picked up the language that they would use early. So I was always like bad in elementary, but
yeah, no, that's funny. There's nothing cooler than being 7 years old, hanging around a bunch of 17 and 18-year-old guys.
I thought I was the coolest dude.
Yeah. Well, that's a very similar experience to myself because I was the same guy, never miss a game, never miss a practice. But obviously you pick up on a lot of stuff. So obviously you picked the ball up very early on. When did it become like a priority for you? When was that, when you decided to really lock in and apply yourself fully? When did that happen?
So I think about this a lot. And so 7th and 8th grade year, I was like very committed, and like my goals were like, you got to go to college to play basketball. Like that's what I wanted to do. But I don't think it was till freshman year where I actually took it serious. Mm-hmm. Like I saw there was a kid, his name's Evan. He was 2 grades above me. I saw his worth ethic and I was like, I haven't been doing what I needed to do. So that's when everything changed, was freshman year. That's when I took it serious.
Yeah.
For real.
I think it's good to talk about that because some kids might feel like they are starting too late, and here you are, someone that really started to apply themselves as a freshman to get to the level that you are. It's never too late to start. Even if you were a junior and you really started to take the game serious, I bet in those 2 years you're going to get really good. So, I think that's good to know. I started maybe a little sooner than most people. Is that the only way to do it? No, right? You can start whenever, but it's having that passion and that buy-in. That initial motivation, was that from, like you said, that other player that was there, right? Is that where you got that from? Or was there another thing that really motivated you when you started to buy in to continue to keep you going and getting in the gym?
So I always loved it, but seeing Evan just work, because he wasn't always the most talented, naturally gifted player, but I watched him early mornings, late nights, and just it became a competition for me. Like, I have to keep up with him if I want to be as good or better.
Yeah.
So that was probably main motivation, but I knew once he left, I had to take over the team. So that was another like motive. But just overall, the love of the game is a motive in itself. Like, if you love it, you're going to be motivated.
Definitely. It's really easy to be passionate about or it's really easy to do the hard things when you're really passionate about something.
Absolutely.
Elon Musk has a really good quote. It's like, it doesn't matter how much time it takes if you actually love it, basically, you know, and like you've been going at it really hard for years now, you know, and I'm sure you feel the same way. You're a part of the Breakfast Club. You're a guy that I've seen essentially live in the gym and sacrifice a lot. You know, being a high school senior, there's a lot of things going on, especially today. There's, you know, homecoming and girlfriends and all these different things that you could be doing. And I've seen you sacrifice a lot. Today, how do you do those hard things? How do you get up in the morning? Is it the love of the game, or is there an external factor that motivates you today after you've been doing it already for so many years?
You know, the love of the game just trumps all, but the discipline I've had throughout the early years, like freshman year, I didn't like doing the things I did every day, but eventually, over and over, it's just second nature now. So I don't even feel anything like sacrifice. It's not even sacrifice at this point. It's just what I like to do.
Yeah, it's just your life. Yeah, I think that's like when you start to get to that point, that's when you know you've fully submitted to the process. When it's just something that it's not really up for question. It's just something that you do, you know? And I think that's really cool. That's when you start to really master your craft in a different way. So obviously, you're a coach's kid. You've been around the game your entire life, and you started your process of working out and doing stuff much earlier than when we started, on your own, right? What made you decide that you wanted to start working out with me, and how was that when we first started? Were you bought in right away? Talk to me a little bit about that.
So I caught your Instagram around last season, and what really like motivated me is I saw Tyson Rodriguez. He hit 7 threes versus Delta last year, and I was like, really? So I was seeing the work you were doing, and I was like, I gotta get in on that because he could really help me. But it took me a while because I was a little scared. I was a little like, that was big for me because I was always like, be in the gym by yourself, which was not good. Yeah. And I was so scared to fail that I didn't contact you until like months later.
Mm-hmm. Funny story about that game. We were actually in the gym until like 10 p.m. that night. Me and Tyson were shooting. So it was good to see him go out and perform because that led you to ultimately come. I remember our first session. It was at Evergreen on a whim. What were your thoughts going into that session or after that session? Like, man, this guy's a bunch of BS. We're doing a bunch of phony stuff. Or was it like, oh, man, this is it right here?
Well, so we've talked about this before, but Bobby and Ross, like that training, I've seen that before. So I kind of knew like the purpose of what you were doing. So I loved it. Like other people at the workout might have not seen what I saw, but from the start, I was like, this is what I need.
Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Was there a moment when you felt like, okay, this stuff is starting to work? Did you have that aha moment?
I would say we had a team camp at Trine over the summer, and obviously I shoot like a good amount during games, but the things I was doing, it wasn't like I was making moves. It was I was reacting. So the things I was doing in a game were way more creative, and I noticed that I'm like, it's from the training, because some of the stuff we do in the training, it's not what you're actually going to do in a game, but it translates to how you react to certain things that happen in the game.
Totally.
So that was like my wow. And I was way bouncier. Like I was finishing through contact. I was just jumping and I felt better. Like my conditioning was good. I was faster, stronger.
I think just to touch on that really quickly before we move on, we've never done conditioning together. We've never worked on stamina or endurance. Everything is high intensity. And, if you do it the right way, you really shouldn't need conditioning. And I'm a big believer in that because I think that's a way, the time that you have on the court is really valuable. Why are we going to sit there and waste our time running, So just to hear you say that, I think kind of shows like you don't necessarily need to because you would go out there and feel great. Let's talk about your bounce because I think there's been a huge transformation in yourself. Not only have you made a transformation on the court in your skill, but you've really showed up and put the time in to work on your athleticism. Just to give a rough idea, where were you touching? What was your bounce like before we started?
So it was very inconsistent. Like some days I'd be dunking a volleyball, but then some days I wouldn't even be able to touch a rim just because my knees just weren't there. But when I came to you, you gave me techniques to like reduce knee pain. So that was one thing. Once I got the pain out of the way, we started doing more jumping.
Yeah.
And I probably increased my vertical by 3 inches. I started dunking more consistently. And I see it in game, like I'm getting opportunities to where I can, like I feel like I can
throw it down.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's pretty cool because that was a major goal that we had. And I think your situation was similar to a lot of athletes. It's not like you were not a good athlete, right? You were a good athlete. You were, pretty athletic. But then to go to that next level, I think that's where we were able to get to, just seeing you go up and rise up and dunk easily was like, whoa, this is actually working for him. He's really elevated to that next step. You talked about knee pain, and I know that's something that you struggled with a little bit. And you said you mentioned some of those techniques. Can you give me like maybe 1 or 2 things that you did that really helped you feel like get rid of the knee pain to be able to perform and feel really good on the court all the time?
I would say probably the biggest one was sledding consistently and stretching consistently. It's such a little thing, but it made a huge difference doing it every single day.
Yeah.
It took so much relief off my knees. So we do that and then we jump and my knees would be fine.
Mm-hmm.
It's the days where I didn't do those things where I noticed the most knee pain. So I think those 2 things are the biggest.
Yeah, I think it's a really good point where it's the little things. It's something as simple as taking 5 minutes a day to hit the backward sled and do your stretches. 5 minutes a day to go through the Miami series. 5 minutes a day to work on our pull-up series, right? And you start to combine all of these routines together, and that's where you start to become a really good athlete with a lot of skill that has no fear in the game. And I think you've done a really good job of buying into all those little routines that make up your grander routine of being in the gym all the time and doing that stuff. Let's talk about being in the gym. You're a great example for athletes everywhere to understand how much time it takes. Can you just give me a typical day in the summer? Like maybe a summer day that we had, that what the summer off season looked like for you?
So during the summer, we'd have a studio session. So that's one probably like hour time slot. And then I'd go shoot an hour or 2 after. And then later that night, I'd go lift and I'd do a skill work. So we're in the gym like 4 times.
Yeah. So again, we did our workout together, right? But you're finding ways to then go and do it on your own. And I think that's the next step, right? Because I would have to assume when you're doing stuff on your own, you're maybe going back through some of the drills you weren't great at, right? Like, I want to get really good at this drill. And you're working on some of the stuff that we're working on. That is the secret. It's never going to happen. You're never going to get to where you want to be if you train with me 1 day per week or 1 time a day, a couple times a week, and that's, I'm going to get to where I want to be, right? You're the example where it's not only am I training with you during the day, right, but I'm then going back and doing stuff on my own too. And I think that's why you've been able to get to where you've gotten to. Let's talk. We've talked a little bit about how your athleticism has changed. Give me something that you've gained from being around this environment mentally, right? Talk about the mental aspect of it.
Well, I see guys that jump higher than me, and I see the things that they do and how they push themselves, and it kind of clicks in your mind, like, so these are the things I got to pick up on. Yeah. And even just being in a positive environment to where it's okay to not be good today, and they'll still encourage you to get better tomorrow. Definitely. So positive environment is a necessity to jump higher. Like, everybody's encouraging each other every day we're in here, and it's great.
Yeah. I have some videos on my phone where we go back, and not only we're encouraging each other, but like trying to find different ways to like hype each other up, right? Whether that's doing a clap countdown or literally cheering you on, so that when you go and do that next rep, you feel like it's a Friday night, your adrenaline's flowing, and then you can go break a new PR. And we did break a lot of PRs this summer. Give me some advice, all right? There's probably a kid at Evergreen or somewhere that was in a very similar position that you were when you saw Evan putting in the work, right? Give advice to your older self or another kid out there that's in that same position that needs that extra push to start to apply themselves and buy in.
I know I've mentioned this like a couple times. The biggest thing that helped me, you just got to let go of that fear of failure. That's the biggest thing you can do. You got to go into every workout, every game, and be willing to make mistakes, because mistakes are how you learn. You're going to grow off mistakes. Everything is not always going to be a win. And even outside of basketball, like, if you love something, go for it. You can't sit around and wait for the right moment. You just gotta let go of that fear and just go for it.
Yeah. Well, I would say the fear was probably gone and let go last night. Big game. You've been playing really well. I'm excited to see that. I'll be to a game soon, but you're a kid that, like I said, I think you're a great example to anyone, a coach, a trainer, someone working in their career, of, someone that has put in the work. And I admire that a lot about you talking about the failure, because I think there's a lot of people that are out there that are scared to make mistakes because they're scared of what other people might think, what you might think of yourself. And, now that we sit here and think about it, I can totally see that, right? I can see you not being as scared to miss a shot, miss a rep, or do something, that you thought was not good, So I think that's great. It's been a great experience, and, I'm really excited to see you this season, but also in the future. I know that you're going to continue to be a game changer. So, Eli, it's been a pleasure. Thanks for coming on. Episode 5, complete. My man. Thank you, bro.